First thing I want to talk about here is some consequences, some good news, some consequences for a few of the January 6th rioters. It's good to see that some of these people are being held accountable finally. Right, some of the big players, that is. A lot of the little bit player kind of people, the little sort of just people who walked in and maybe like, fought with a cop or something or smashed down a door or whatever, they've been going to jail and stuff like that. But the organizers, the people who are in charge, who put all of this stuff together so far, have, for the most part, evaded responsibility. So one thing that I am very, very happy to see is Stuart Rhodes has been sentenced and has received 18 years in prison. So those of you out there who have forgotten who Stuart Rhodes is, he is the leader of the Oath Keepers. Oath Keepers are essentially a militia that were started right about, I think, 2008, 2009, right around there. But they really kind of got big when Hillary started running for president. I think, the first time in 2008 is when, because she went up against Barack Obama and lost. And I think that's when they formed, because the guy Stuart Rhodes really, really, really seems to hate Hillary Clinton like a lot. And he just sort of parlayed that group into essentially a militia, a sort of militia borderline terrorist group is what they are. And they would go around and hold rallies. Like they would do things like I remember, for example, a few years back in Michigan. I think it was Michigan. What it was that they had a vote to enact some environmental legislation, and the Republicans decided to just leave and not show up to vote, which is a legit tactic. And it's the law in that state says the governor is allowed to go send the police to bring them back and force them to vote. And the Oath Keepers, for example, said, we will defend these politicians. We'll shoot anyone that tries to get them. Right? Basically, they basically came out and told the police that we'll kill you if you try to do your jobs. And of course, the governor backed off there, and that vote was never held. So that's an example of who these people are, right? They were there. They were part of the core group on January 6th. They were there basically to kidnap members of Congress and physically prevent them from certifying the election. There's plenty of news stories about that. They had a group of people armed, basically waiting 10 minutes away, waiting for the signal to show up, and with their assault rifles and crap like that, and just start massacring people in the Capitol. That was their plan. And if you look at video of January 6th, they're running through there dressed in fatigues, like marching in a line and stuff. That's the Oath Keepers. So yeah, I've actually have 2 or 3 streams talking about these guys, so I don't want to go into too much detail about who they are and their history. But suffice to say, they are pretty bad guys. And this guy, Stuart Rhodes, is the worst of them. He is now going to be in jail for 18 years, which fills my heart with happiness, because fuck this guy. He is now 58 years old. The next time he gets to breathe free air will be in the year 2041, when he will be 78. I hope he enjoys it. I hope he enjoys his new retirement, his early retirement in prison, because fuck him. He deserves every last minute of his freedom being taken away. In fact, I hope he fucks up while he's in prison and does something bad and gets resentenced and never gets out. That's what I hope. He wasn't the only one to be sentenced this past week. His assistant, Kelly Meggs, who was sort of like his right-hand man, also got 12 years. So Stuart Rhodes got 18 and a half years, which so far is the most that anybody connected to January 6th has gotten. Like, before this, I think the highest sentence before this was the guy who put his feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk. That dude got like 5 years, and then the QAnon shaman got like 4.5 years or something like that. So this is where we're starting to get into the real sentencing. 18 years for basically seditious conspiracy is what he was convicted of, which is the same thing that all of the members of the Proud Boys, including Enrique Tarrio, were convicted of as well. So expect some really big sentences in their cases also. So anyway, his friend, his right hand man, Kelly Meggs, got 12 years. Some quotes by the judge in this case. We absolutely cannot have a group of citizens who, because they did not like the outcome of the election, who did not believe the law was followed as it should be, foment revolution. This is from District Judge Amit Mehta, said before he handed down the sentence here. This is what you did. I dare say, Mr. Rhodes, and I never have said this to anyone I have sentenced, you pose an ongoing threat and peril to our democracy and the fabric of this country, Mehta said. Judge added, I dare say we now hold our collective breaths when an election is approaching. Will we have another January 6th again? That remains to be seen. For his part, Stuart Rhodes, he was completely 100% unapologetic and was ranting and raving about the election being stolen prior to his sentencing. You know how they give you like one last chance to say something, before you actually get your sentence handed down, and this is usually when like people plead to the court and be like, please, judge, please don't send me to jail. I didn't mean it. It was an accident. Blah, 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 right? He didn't do any of that. He just said, fuck you. It was right. I did it. I don't care, and I'll do it again. Essentially, in so many words, that's what he said. And that's why the judge decided to throw the book at him. Now, here's the thing, right? The judge didn't actually, no, I'll take that back. The judge didn't actually throw the book at him. They were asking for 25 years, and he only sentenced him to 18. So no, in that respect, Stuart Rhodes is getting off light. He should have got fucking 25 years, right? But anyway, 18 years still, when you're 58 years old, 18 years is pretty goddamn devastating. It is basically like essentially the rest of your life, and by the time you get out, you're going to be, I mean, you're already old when you go in, right? So by the time he gets out, he's going to be super old. So yeah, who knows what, I don't know. I'm thinking Stuart Rhodes might end up doing something bad to himself while he's in prison there. Don't want to elaborate too much on that. Not that I'm hoping for him to, go the Hero route or anything, but if he did, I would not be shedding a tear because this guy's a piece of shit and he deserves every last bit of it. So far, 22 other members of the Oath Keepers have been convicted of various federal crimes in connection with January 6th. Of those, 8 of them have been convicted of seditious conspiracy. So that's sort of the highest level, seditious conspiracy is the, like, trying to take over the United States level of crime there, right? Now, it's easy for us here on the progressive left, or even if you're not progressive, just a, Democrat or a liberal or whatever. It is easy for us to sit here and judge these people, and they're scumbags and they should go to prison and blah 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 blah. And how can this happen? And you just think in your head that it's just all culture war shit or whatever, and that the right wing is filled with crazies. And I would like to bring to your attention another member of the Oath Keepers who was sentenced this last week. That of Jessica Watkins. She got 8.5 years, right? Let me go ahead and open up for you guys here this article from CNN. This is Jessica Watkins. Jessica Watkins, Oath Keepers member and Army veteran, sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for January 6th. There she is. So, Jessica Watkins is actually transgender. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why would a transgendered woman align herself with the far right wing, the revolutionary right wing? The right wing in this country who was trying to take over the election for Donald Trump, who basically was a president that would take transgender rights away. In fact, Donald Trump actually did take transgender rights away, with the military ban and all that. Why would somebody who would align themselves with a group, with a movement, who are so obviously against their own self-interest? Let's read a little bit about this, right? Jessica Watkins, Army veteran and member of the far-right Oath Keepers, sentenced Friday to 8.5 years in prison for participating in a plot to disrupt the certification 2020 presidential election, accumulating in January 6th, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's see. Judge Almit Mehta says Watkins' efforts at the Capitol were aggressive. She did not have immediate remorse, even though she has since apologized. So she actually did apologize. Right? Unlike Stuart Rhodes, who was all defiant and shit. Your role that day was more aggressive, more assaultive, more purposeful than perhaps others, and you led others to fulfill your purposes, Mehta said, and there was not an immediate aftermath in any sense of shame or contrition. Just the opposite. Your comments were celebratory and lacked a real sense of the gravity of that day and your role in it. So, let's read a little more. The trial prosecutors showed evidence that Watkins founded and led a small militia in Ohio, mobilized her group in coordination with the Oath Keepers, and Watkins and her counterparts ultimately marched in tactical gear to the Capitol and encouraged other rioters to push past police on the Senate chamber. I was just another idiot running around the hallway, Watkins told the court before the sentence was handed down, but idiots are responsible, and today you're going to hold this idiot responsible. So, at least it seems like Jessica Watkins was at least trying to express some remorse, unlike the other people, unlike Kelly Meggs, unlike Stuart Rhodes, right? So, let's see. I was in denial. Let's skip down a little bit. Watkins, who is transgender, gave emotional testimony during the trial about struggling with her identity in the Army while the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was still in effect, and about being dragged into the underbelly of conspiracy theories around the 2020 presidential election. So, for your wee ones out there who weren't alive during the 90s, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a policy put in place by Bill Clinton. So what it was back in the day is that if you were not straight in the Army, they would just kick you out. And he basically put in a thing saying, okay, Don't Ask, Don't Tell means that the Army won't inquire about it, but if they find out, they'll still kick you out. That was considered progressive in the 90s. Okay. And it wasn't until years later when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was just basically removed, and now you're allowed to not be straight in the Army now. And this is saying baby steps, right? I mean, things do get better over time, but still, for decades and decades, it was basically if you were in the Army and you got outed, it was the end of your career, which is bullshit. She tearfully reiterated to the judge on Friday that she was very fearful and paranoid at the time, and that while for a long time I was in denial of my own culpability, she now can see my actions for what they were. They were wrong, and I am sorry. I understand now that my presence in and around the Capitol that day probably inspired those individuals to a degree. Watkins said, they saw us there and probably fired them up. The Oath Keepers here. Oath Keepers are here, and they were patting us on the back. How many people went in because of us were responsible for that? Right, so, sounds like she was wrong. Now, here's the thing, right? I wanted to point this out because it's unusual that you see people who are transgendered aligned with the far right like this, right? And make no mistake, the Oath Keepers are as right-wing as they get. They're one step below Nazis, okay? They seriously are. The Oath Keepers themselves as an organization don't seem to be white supremacists per se. That is to say, their official literature and websites and stuff like that don't have much in the way of dog whistles for white supremacy, but they definitely take it very hard from a sort of anti-leftist, anti-communist kind of route. Let's go ahead and turn this off. They're super hard anti-leftist, super hard anti-communist, and like all of the code words that come with that, the woke agenda, that kind of thing. And a lot of their members are they themselves like that that type of rhetoric attracts a certain type of person. That being the super hardcore right wing who also happen to align with white supremacism. So while I would say the organization itself is not a white supremacist organization, it definitely aligns with white supremacist organizations, and there's a lot of crossover with it, kind of the same way the Proud Boys are. Like, Proud Boys themselves are not a white supremacist organization, but they definitely align with them, and a lot of their membership are out and out Nazis. Kind of the same thing here. You know, it's the Venn diagram between white supremacists and Proud Boys and Oath Keepers is a very close circle. Put it that way, right? But they do have non-white members in them as well. And just as an example here, people who are transgendered, right? And I wanted to bring her up because it's an example of how everyone is vulnerable to this kind of radicalization. You know, we shouldn't sit here and think that we're invulnerable to radicalization ourselves, because we're not. You know, all of us at home in the progressive left or the, you know, the liberal elite or whatever you want, whatever. All of us at home that you know, like to recycle our soda cans and are socially conscious and that kind of thing. And we should not look down our noses at these people who become super radicalized like this, because it can really happen to anyone. And that's why I think this is a very good example of that. This is a person who was going through lots of changes, had lots of questions in her life, right? And could have gone many different ways with it. And it was, you know, why did she go the Oath Keeper route? Like, why does that? I mean, you would think that this, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I mean, at least to anybody who, I mean, if you think about it for 2 seconds, like, why would you align yourself with people who demonstrably hate you and would take away your rights and who would kill you if given the chance? Doesn't seem to make sense, doesn't it? But see, that's the thing, folks. Life doesn't make sense, right? There's lots of different factors out there that can influence you in ways that you're not even aware of. Everything from the geography where you live and the cultural influences that surround you and your family and your own background, that kind of thing. So something to be aware of. These are not people that deserve hate. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't hate these people. I do not hate the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys or maybe their leadership. I fucking hate those assholes because I see them as taking advantage of people. Such as Gavin McInnes, he's a giant piece of shit. I hate him for even starting the fucking Proud Boys in the first place. Right, this guy Stuart Rhodes, I hate him for taking advantage of people and perpetuating hate. But you know, the average person who gets caught up in this stuff is just a person, and a lot of the times people, what it is people want a place to belong. That's what it is. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants a place to belong. Everybody wants friends. Everybody wants family. Everybody wants someone that they can talk to and a group that they can confide in and feel and an identity that they can feel proud of. It really is that simple. A lot of young white men specifically feel lost in a culture that they think has abandoned them decades ago, and they're basically prime candidates to be recruited by online hate efforts. Like, you know, the internet, kids are on the internet all day when they grow up playing video games. They don't have friends. Young guys like that, they don't get girlfriends or anything like that because they've spent their whole childhood just indoors on Roblox or World of Warcraft or whatever. So they've never talked to a girl in their entire life. And then before you know it, they grow up and they're out of high school and nobody gives a fuck about them and they can't get a job and they're losers. And then here's some groups online that like them not because of anything they may have accomplished, which is not very much, but because of the color of their skin, because of their ancestry or some other stupid reason like that. There's a group that's accepting of them. And so they join up because everybody wants to have people that accept them. That's what it is. And it just so happens that these are groups with agendas that involve murdering minorities and gay people and trans people and taking away people's rights. So that is just something to be aware of. That is, I think we should do more of outreach to disaffected young men who were falling into the alt right, into the racism, and let them know it's like, hey, you're okay. You can come hang out with us. We don't hate you. You don't have to, you can be your. I mean, because what is the message on the left? And I'm going to say the left as a monolith here. I'm going to include everything that's to the left on the political compass or whatever. What's sort of the unifying theme? It's kind of hard to define, right? What exactly is the unifying theme on the left? Well, I think it all kind of boils down to respect. Respect for workers' rights, respect for the environment, respect for people's choices, respect for people's culture, respect for people's bodily autonomy, respect for people's sexual identity or their gender expression. That's what it is. That's, to me, that's what it seems like to me what the message on the left should be. Is that's what it actually seems to be to me, that we don't judge you for who you are. We judge your actions. We don't judge people for their intrinsic qualities that they're born with that they can't control. Up to and including their class and their race, their gender. We don't judge people for any of that stuff. We judge people for, well, what did you do with your wealth? Do you hate rich people just because they're rich? No. You don't hate somebody like Bill Gates or Elon Musk or you don't judge them. I guess hate isn't the right word. It's like, do you judge somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or the CEO of your company or whatever just because they're rich? Like, just because he's rich, he's automatically an asshole? No. No, there's plenty of benevolent rich people who donate to charities and shit like that all the time out there, right? There's a lot of them, make foundations and like help orphans and get people in Africa drinking water. Like there's all kinds of good people out there with wealth that do good things with wealth, right? No, the reason you judge people who are wealthy is because they're greedy scumbags who fuck each other over and who exploit people. That's why why do people hate billionaires? Because the lowest paid guy in their factory is throwing themselves off the roof in a factory in China because the working conditions are so shitty. While the leader of the company is buying the 17th yacht, flying around like paragliding with fucking like supermodels and shit, while like the infrastructure that he acquired all that wealth with destroys the entire goddamn world. That's why people hate him. That's why. Because their choices, the things that they did to get rich, are literally murdering and screwing everybody else. There's no reason why people have to be homeless. There's no reason why the earth should be burning down. Why we have global warming and sea level rise and the last white rhino is like, white rhinos are like extinct. And there's no reason for any of that stuff. Why people in inner cities are drinking water full of lead, and while super rich people are living the lap of luxury, getting everything they've ever wanted, dying happy as a clam at the age of 93 or whatever, having suffered zero consequences for their exploitation of the entire earth. On the left, that's what we're all about. We're all about judging people who don't do anything and whose actions screw everybody up. Not because you were just born with the wrong skin color or the wrong religion, or because you're poor and you're trying to go to another country to find a better life, or something like that. That's ultimately, I think, what the culture war is all about to me, and that's why I think we should reach out to these people. We should reach out to people like Jessica Watkins. Think about how much it would have changed for her if she just would have had some people on the other side that she could have talked to. She definitely wouldn't be in prison right now. Maybe her entire group of Oathkeeper people wouldn't have gone down to January 6th, and maybe they wouldn't all be in prison now as well. Maybe, I don't know, lots of things could have turned out a lot different for a lot of people if there was just somebody there to give her a differing point of view. And that's really all you can really do, folks. You can't force people to think the same way that you think. That's just not possible. What are you going to do? Put a gun to someone's head and be like, you will respect gay rights? Like, no, that's not how it works. You will not be racist, what, like, put a shotgun to their face or whatever. Stop being racist. Like, that's not, no, that's not how it works. You can't force people to believe the same things you believe, to engage in the same political activity and take your stance on issues and stuff. It's not, no, that's not how it works. You have, but what can you do? You can present alternatives. That's why it's important to engage as well on social media. That's why it's important. Engage people. Don't automatically come off as a giant douchebag, as a giant dick when debating people. But offer an alternative. There are times and places for being a jerk to people, like when it comes to Nazis and shit like that. But you want to also know when to offer that olive branch, because there could be people out there like Jessica Watkins who are searching, who are troubled, who are searching, and will be responsive to your message. And it won't be everybody, and it won't happen all the time, but that's how you win a culture war, is one person at a time. Because it actually is a culture war. We are in a culture war. Jessica Watkins is a casualty of that culture war. Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.